Good morning, evening, afternoon, everyone, wherever you are. Welcome to our MIT Sloan LGBT Club Google Hangout. We're here today to give you insight into the club and what we're doing at MIT Sloan and answer any questions that you guys might have. We're joined by four of current students who are members of the club, and so we'll let them introduce themselves. First, I guess, my name's Jeff Carbone. I work in the admissions office at MIT Sloan. Lakshmi?
My name is Lakshmi. I'm a first-year MBA, graduating in 2016.
What else?
I'm Jason Shapiro. I'm a second-year MBA, also class of 2015.
Hey, I'm Bradley Owens, MBA class of 2016.
Hi guys, I'm Chris. I'm the club president. I'm a 2016, but I started last year because I'm a dual degree student.
Great. So why don't you guys tell us first tell us what you did before Sloan, like I asked from the beginning, and if you did a summer internship, let us know what those are too. So Lakshmi, take it away.
Hi, Jeff. Sorry, I forgot to mention. So I graduated from Connecticut College, studied economics and math for undergrad, worked at an economic consulting firm in Boston for 5 years right before Sloan. And at Sloan, I'm involved in the operations club and the tech club, and of course the LGBT club, and a little bit with the Sloan Women in Management as well.
Awesome. Yeah, sorry, Jeff. I kind of followed Lakshmi's lead and left everything out. But so I graduated from Cornell. I was a structural engineer for a few years before coming here to Sloan. My goal coming to Sloan was to work in management consulting, so I did that over the summer at Deloitte, and I'm going back full-time in the fall. I am involved with the Ed Club, the Tech Club, obviously the LGBT Club, and lots of other things around Sloan, so happy to answer any questions about that.
Okay, and once again, Bradley Owens. Before MIT Sloan, I also went to Cornell University. I was applied economics and management major. I spent a few years on Wall Street, so I worked for an investment bank I moved to a managerial position after that at a different company where I had a large team of folks in an apartment that I ran. And I spent a little bit of time doing some strategy consulting before coming to Sloan as well. And on campus, I'm in a number of clubs, including the Finance Club, the Venture Capital and Private Equity Club, and a little lighter, the Wine Club, also known as the Vintners Club here on campus. So lots of things to do here once you guys arrive.
Awesome. I'm Chris. Before I was at Sloan, I was a management consultant working at Monitor, which became Monitor Deloitte shortly before I left. Like I said, I started last year. I was very involved, obviously, in the LGBT Club, which I'm now co-president of. I was also really involved in the Design Club, the NI Club, and Tech. I'm really focused on sort of tech and government, so I spent the summer at Amazon, and I'm doing a dual degree with Harvard Kennedy School as well, so I'm in both those programs.
Nice. What are you thinking of doing next summer?
I'm not sure. It's a little early. It's odd having two internships, so I'm not quite sure what next summer looks like yet.
Great. Well, thanks, guys. So people that are watching, if you have questions, start asking questions so we can get a list going, and then we can answer them for you. It's very informal. Anything you want to know, we're happy to talk about and answer for you. Why don't we just, Chris or Jason, let us know about some of the things that the LGBT Club does well at school and beyond. From you guys are the most experienced as you were here last year as well. Yeah,
so I'll start, and Jason can add things he likes too. We are a club at Sloan that's really about the community of the LGBT students. We are across the Sloan experience, so we're talking about students who are in the MBA, as well as some other students who are at Sloan. It's a cohort that tries to get together monthly, and then also a lot of stuff informally. We also have events on campus, so we usually try to have one or so a semester that are focused more on sort of LGBT issues. So for instance, last spring we had one called Ask Me Anything, where you could sort of, students who maybe didn't know as much about LGBT issues could ask questions and learn about sort of some of the issues you might have in the workplace or just other sort of just questions they had in a kind of safe, open environment. We also do fun things, so we host a Big C function, which is sort of a weekly party sort of get-together that Sloan has across the campus, and we host one of those. And like I said, our club is growing, getting more and more active, doing more and more activities for our campus.
Yeah, I think that's a great description, and I don't have too much more to add. One of the big kind of initiatives that we're working on now is ally engagement. So that's always very ongoing, getting everybody on campus kind of excited and enthusiastic about supporting the group and all the LGBT students at Sloan. So that's a big one. We also, on the fun side, had a pretty big contingent at RUMBA this year. So it stands for Reaching Out NBA. It's a big conference that this year was in San Francisco. So it was a lot of fun. We represented Sloan well. We got to meet people from all different business schools, and that was definitely a neat experience.
Great, thanks guys. So building off the Ramba thing, we're one of the schools too that is one of the first ones to join for the new Ramba Fellowship. So for those of you watching that are interested in applying this year or in the future, we do have a Ramba Fellowship that we'll give away each year, one or two, and that's just something to look forward to. Money's always good towards your MBA, so that's good. So one of the first questions, Lakshmi, you can take this, or anyone, what percentage of the LGBT club identifies as female?
I would say the number. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, let's first start with like, what guys talk about the number of LGBT students on campus, the number like in the club, as well as then talk about allies separately, but and then we can address the female as well.
We can take that. So yeah. I would say, obviously it varies year to year. There's not like a quota or anything. So I would say generally it tends to hover around, I would say 12 to 20, somewhere in that mix usually each year. Again, that's people who usually are out and identifying as LGBT. There's other folks who maybe don't choose to be involved in the community, who've made themselves known in other ways, but that's generally about it. Lakshmi can chime in here. I think usually it works out that if there's, 12 to 20 LGBT folks, there's probably going to be 2 to 5 who are female. It does skew more male, I would say, just to be candid.
That's pretty accurate. Sloan also has about, this year I think we have about 40% women, so overall as a class as well, probably slightly more skewed towards men. So that kind of reflects the LGBT club as well.
Great. Another question. There were some people that emailed questions in earlier. So one of the questions was, how do you? The question actually was, how do you feel that Sloan views women in general?
That's a very broad question.
Very broad.
Yeah.
So take it away, Lakshmi.
I mean, I think more than. I'm actually going to approach. I was just talking to somebody about this. I think it's the other way around. One of the reasons we probably don't have like close to 50% women is because women probably self-select themselves out of applying to MIT because they think, oh, it's Sloan, it's technical years. Some of those things are true, but I personally haven't found much of a difference here, right? Being a woman or a guy, you should all apply irrespective. I can't think of anything specific other than that. I don't know if that helps.
Good. Another question: how does the club engage the community outside of Sloan? And do they?
I'd be happy to take that one. So there's lots of ways that all different clubs engage the community. So one of the ways, kind of aside from the LGBT club, and then I'll bring it back to that a little bit. So there's through the education club, we interact a lot with this organization called Build, which kind of teaches entrepreneurship to youth in the area. So last year, actually, working with this organization, it's a bunch of high school students. There were a few who identified as LGBT. So it wasn't necessarily through the club that this relationship was formed, but there was somewhat of a mentoring relationship between students here, whether they're in the LGBT club or not, and students in high school who identify as LGBT. So that was kind of good to see. It's good to see that high schoolers in the area have people who they could talk to, who they could look up to as role models, as people who have gone through college and in graduate school, for people who might not come from a family where that happened. So there's definitely lots of engagement with the community that way.
Yeah, I'd also just add that, in terms of the LGBT community, as you mentioned, we're very involved in Ramba. Like 2 years ago, Sloan was one of the lead schools that organized the event. We're involved on sort of the Ramba leadership calls where we talk with other LGBT clubs about sort of Ramba and LGBT MBA experiences. Actually, just coming up later this week, Bradley kind of has helped us set up another kind of get-together with HBS. Obviously, there's a lot of other MBA students here in town, so there is connections with those schools too. Some of us also are involved across MIT. There's sort of a broader graduate LGBT groups at MIT. which you are also, a part of as an MIT student. I think people choose how much they want to be involved. There's only so much you can do, but they have fun events as well. They have retreats and sort of ways to get to know people and get involved in sort of the Cambridge area.
And I'll add to that. This is sort of, just things. So I was in Boston before I came to Sloan, so I'm sort of fairly familiar and plugged into the LGBT scene in Boston, outside of Sloan. So, one of the sort of professional organizations that I'm part of, but definitely much more based in the West Coast, is Lesbians Who Tech. If you're interested in tech and LGBT, you should definitely look into it. It's this awesome organization. It's a group of women who love to tech. So they have an annual conference in February that I'll be going to in San Francisco, helping organize it as well. So that's one of the other ways. That it isn't directly through the club, but sort of like personal interest. So that's one way to do it as well. It doesn't have to be through the club in a formal way.
Great. So another question we got: do you have offer any mentorship programs for first-year students?
So not within LGBT specifically. There definitely are official sort of Sloan mentorship programs. There's coaching programs. There's sort of any number of ways to sort of get buddies or coaches for specific careers or like leadership development things you have. I would say our club is, fairly informal. As I mentioned, we're not a huge group, so we don't have a lot of structures that are sort of like now you have your buddy. But we're all talking to each other on WhatsApp, answering questions about jobs and like going to this event or that event. So I think it's a pretty tight community, but mentorship maybe more informally.
I'll add to that. I agree with Chris. I think it's a little too small and kind of informal. But on the other hand, SWIM, which is a Sloan Women in Management, they have a fairly formal sort of mentorship program where they, if you wanted, as a first year, they can pair you up with a second year who's part of SWIM. So that's one of the sort of informal avenues of mentorship through a club that's not LGBT club.
What about mentorship opportunities through Sloan in general?
Absolutely. So there are a lot of those. I'd be happy to take that. So obviously, as Lakshmi said, SWIM has one. There's a peer-to-peer mentorship program that is basically just launching in the middle of the first semester, where second years can kind of coach first years on leadership presence and things like that, kind of evaluating where they stand in terms of kind of going towards their end goals. Almost every single club has a mentorship program that's pretty formal, especially the career-focused clubs. So Management Consulting Club has one. I feel like there's, for first years, absolutely no shortage of buddies or mentors that you can have within the school.
And I'll just add to that, one of the more formal mentorship is also sort of the 360-degree feedback you get, which is sort of, this survey of sorts you take before you come in, and you get sort of 360-degree feedback on all of your leadership styles from people you've worked with. You ask them to fill out the survey as well, and then you sit down sort of at the beginning of every semester, and I think the end of the semester, I've only met one so far, with a coach who's a staff or a faculty at Sloan or larger MIT, and they sort of walk you through your general goals to be an effective leader. So that's one of the more formal programs as well. That's completely voluntary. You can sign up for it, and it's free and available for all incoming students.
And to add one more quick thing to that I forgot. So I don't know if we're going to get to kind of alumni engagement, but there's a huge mentorship program between current students and alumni. So I feel like when you enter as a first year, it's great to hear from second years on kind of an informal basis, but they also pair you with an alumni. So you look at this whole database, you try to match yourself with somebody who meets your career objectives, who kind of might have a similar background to you and can advise you on how to go through Sloan, how to pursue that career that you want to get. So alumni have been fantastic at helping people, at making relationships, and that's a really cool program as well.
Great. So another question for, I guess, is more towards Jason and Chris. What's the tolerance and acceptance atmosphere been like in terms of your job search while at Sloan? And have you been more closeted or out?
Yeah, so I'll take that first. I have not had any issues at all. I've been very out. Frankly, it's been a way for me to sort of actually meet some specific alumni at companies I'm interested in. So, for example, I interned at Amazon, and there was another former Sloaney who was there who was LGBT, and we kind of had a connection from Ramba, and we interviewed, I talked more, and then actually met her again after my interview. So I would say being out has actually been an asset for me, just sort of helping me have another kind of connection, and we can share our experience with the club. I think you'll actually find a fair number of companies who are actively trying to sort of recruit a more diverse workforce. So they'll very much reach out to the club and ask, all of us to email to club members, looking for folks who are LGBT who want to come to this, that, or the other event, learn about their company, given their sort of mandate is sort of focused on diverse hiring. I think, if you're looking at smaller companies potentially, or companies who are outside the U.S., you might potentially have a different experience. I'm not sure that's true, but I think particularly if you're at bigger companies, it's not going to be a problem, I would say, at all, to be candid. But Jason maybe has other thoughts on that too.
Yeah, pretty much the same. I mean, I felt nothing but tolerance and like acceptance, and almost like it's a non-issue in Sloan and outside of Sloan in my job search and everything. It must depend on the industry, but I have never heard a story of it being an issue anywhere. Sloan is the first place that I've really been openly out. And I feel like that wouldn't have necessarily happened if it weren't such an accepting place and if the job search weren't very accepting. So I feel like that's a really easy question to answer because it's just kind of easy.
Anyone else have anything to add? Good. All right. So another question, what's been your favorite part of Sloan so far?
The
So
people.
Bradley, you've been quiet. Why don't you take it away and put you on the spot right there, and just something quick. It doesn't have to be long.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, since this is the LGBT chat, I'll say that my favorite part of Sloan, I'll say outside of it a little bit or connected to it, has been Ramba. The Reaching Out MBA conference was phenomenal. It was a great opportunity to get a little bit closer to the LGBT community within MIT because a lot of us traveled out together and spent a lot of time at different events, but also a chance to kind of reflect and get a glance and kind of spend time with other folks, other MBAs from across the U.S. as well. I think there was something like 1,400 MBAs at the program, and maybe 86 or 87 schools represented. So that was just one great opportunity for me, I feel like, so far at Sloan to kind of get involved in MIT, in the community here.
Yeah, and you ditched us. I take you guys out for dinner and drinks, and you didn't show up. I think you're the only one that didn't show up.
Oh, way to call me out. Thank you.
Anyone else want to add something? Aside from, just berating Bradley for ditching us because he's too cool.
It's such a hard question. There's just so many things at Sloan. Like among them, the Sloan Olympics is a lot of fun. It's like on the non-LGBT side, it's just kind of getting the whole Sloan community together in kind of a field day-like adventure where you do tug of war, dizzy bat, you just compete in all these like ridiculous events. Camp Sloan is kind of a hiking trip that you take. It's an overnight, just get to know your classmates in like a quiet New Hampshire cabin. So that's been a lot of fun. The hiking trip is very similar, like a pre-function before Sloan even starts. So lots of really awesome things.
Yeah, I would just...
Yeah. Chris, go ahead.
Okay, I would just add that I think, outside of some of the actual really, structured events, like the thing for me that's been the most special is just all the sort of interesting people you have the chance to meet and have small conversations with. So, there's a guy in my first semester core group who had been a monk, had also been an investment banker, and you're like, what? And there's the people who like literally were rocket scientists, and then just have all these kind of really interesting people you get to have the chance to have pretty like unique experiences with, and lots of kind of small conversations, and just always meeting all these different folks across the school, and that's I think a really special part of my experience.
Yeah, that summarizes pretty much all of my favorite things. I did a lot of research about Sloan, and I felt like I knew a lot of things about Sloan before I came. But of course, there's more things you discover, right? I mean, you can't really know everything about a school. And one of the more structured things that I didn't know about before I came is this thing called a yarn, which happens like once a month or something like that, about once a month. It's Sloanies who sign up, like 3 or 4 of them, and they go up there on stage and talk about themselves and like a story or a moment that sort of changed their lives. Some of it is funny, some of it is profound, some of it is moving. I mean, it's just personal stories about people, and that's like one of my favorite things about Sloan this semester so far. I've been to like one, there's one next week. You get to know people in a different setting than you would otherwise.
Great. How about the question of, do any of you have a partner that you're currently with at Sloan or away from Sloan, and how's that been going so far?
I'll chime in on this one. So I've got an SO, a significant other, who I've been with for 4 to 5 years now. And he's not in Boston. He's actually in New York City, so that's where we lived before I came to the MIT now. And it's been actually a really smooth experience, kind of integrating him into the community, even though he's long distance. So there's about a 4.5 hour train ride or drive from New York to Boston, and he's been here 4 times in the last couple months. So that's, I feel like, a pretty good sense. Gives you a pretty good sense of the amount of time he's able to spend here. But also beyond that, when he does come, he integrates really smoothly in the community. All of my classmates and my core team in my ocean want to spend time with him, want to meet him. He gets invited to events and gets to hang out with folks. And he definitely has friends here from the limited amount of time that he has been able to come up and hang out. And I think that kind of speaks to the engagement of the community, the openness of folks to spend time with your SOs, your significant others, and a real willingness to just have this integrated community kind of come into place.
SOs, significant others, SOs we call them, I feel like just have a special place in the whole Sloan community. My boyfriend of 3.5 years lives here in Boston with me, and I feel like a lot of my friends here at Sloan don't even know that he's an SO necessarily. SOs are welcome at all the events that we do. They're a huge part of the community. They come to the hiking trip and all these cool events that we do. They sometimes help us in our group projects if they have some expertise to add in. So they're awesome to have around all the time.
Right. I guess the other 2 are single?
No, my SO and I, he's actually in Berkeley, in California. He's getting his PhD out there. So that is slightly farther away than New York City. But, we try to see each other every 3 weeks. One of us flies out there, or, he flies here. So that's worked. I think, the travel and logistics can be a challenge, but, I think it's, your class schedule can be structured in such a way that you can have 3-day weekends. And when he comes here, I mean, he's, people ask about him when he's coming next, and he's met all my friends, and he's very kind of quickly to kind of jump back into the community when he gets here. So I think, it's a really open place. There's plenty of folks with SOs across Sloan, and I think, as others have mentioned, they're very much integrated into the community.
Great. Poor Lakshmi, the single girl.
Thanks, Jess. Are you recording this?
This could be your dating profile.
Of course.
You want to let the world know something about you?
Right.
So another question, what's the most difficult thing about Sloan? Don't all jump out at once.
I'll take it if nobody else wants to right away. For me, I think it's FOMO, and that's the term that I learned when I was here, fear of missing out. And it's totally true, and I bet all of you guys are nodding, even though I'm looking at the camera and not down at the bottom of the screen. But I feel like things just come up all the time, and you could get 100 emails a day that are all events that are happening that week, and there's just no way you can go to all of them. So it's really about prioritizing, figuring out what you want to get out of school, and then kind of not worrying about the things that you go to, making you miss lots of other things that are going on at the same time.
Yeah, I'll add to that. I mean, sleep and exercise and time for yourself, like those are important things that are really hard to do if you don't have a level of self-awareness and realize those are important to you. Like you can go 3 months without having enough sleep or not having exercise or not spending time with people outside of Sloan that you care about, and then you're like, oh shit, I guess I should do those things. So I mean, you hear a lot about this when you apply, and I was like, yeah, I have a busy life. Like, I know how to handle that. That's fine. Time management is my thing. But like Jason said, there's just so much going on, and you're here, and you want to take opportunity, like, you do everything, right? And yeah, sort of figuring out prioritizing is definitely one of the harder things.
Yeah, I would agree. I would just add to that. I think just sort of like maintaining focus is sort of like what you want to get out of different times. So, certain points really wanting to be really open to sort of learning lots of different things, but also realizing at a certain point some focus is helpful too, particularly during the job search if you're trying to do like 15 different industries. So I think just kind of knowing when to be open and when to focus is sort of, I think, a challenge in general. So.
Great. So another question, does the LGBT Club influence Sloan's curriculum in any way? For example, some schools have LGBT cases built into their curriculum, and has that happened at MIT Sloan?
So I'll start. So we have talked about this with the administrations, like having a case as a part of one of our courses. We haven't pushed on it that hard, to be candid. We're not a completely case-based program, so there's plenty of classes that don't even use cases all the time. So I think we've talked about ways it can be. I think through identity and conversations you have about diversity, it comes up. But we haven't kind of structured a conversation with the administration to have an explicit sort of like module or sort of curriculum or like specific sort of lessons around LGBT issues. We've talked about it, but it hasn't been an area where the club has chosen to focus.
I'll just add to that. So SIP week was last week, which is a Sloan innovation period. In the beginning of the semester, or in the middle of the semester, you have sort of a week off. It's not really off. You don't do regular classes, but you have workshops on leadership and ethics and a bunch of other things. So I was at a diversity workshop, which was fantastic. I think Bradley was there, right? Yeah. And so it was really good. And we were talking about. I'm talking to student life now, and one of the things we're talking about, can we have these conversations during orientation, and kind of have it mandatory so that everybody sort of goes through it, and rather than just having a self-selected group of people take it during SIP. It may or may not happen, but that's the kind of thing. Again, it doesn't need to be like formal through the club, but you can make it happen, and you can make it happen in many ways. It doesn't have to be a class. It can be something people do at orientation.
Yeah, I'll just add that that Ask Me Anything panel I mentioned earlier, we had I think over 100 Sloanies come to that who just again out of their own volition were just like curious and wanted to kind of ask questions about LGBT folks and their experience. I think that kind of speaks to like an openness and people's sort of willingness to sort of ask questions and engage. I will just add that I think I've not experienced like any issues of homophobia at all at Sloan. So I think for some of us, we haven't just sort of felt as much like urgency to kind of make sure we're having these conversations in every class. So I think in pockets we're doing it, but we all feel so accepted. I just want to add that sort of part of why we kind of choose to focus on the things we do.
Great. Another question: what surprised you most about MIT Sloan? Thing that you didn't expect?
I didn't expect a business school that's been around for now, I guess, 101 years. We just had our 100-year birthday last year. To be so receptive to change. So one of the most interesting things I saw when I came for my interview was this huge board on the wall that had a whole bunch of sticky notes, and it was labeled, "What changes would you make at Sloan?" And a whole bunch of students were kind of posting their ideas. And I was kind of shocked how many of those ideas actually got implemented. So we just kind of mentioned SIP Week. And last year, some of the students were thinking about ways that SIP Week could be better, could be changed, and all of those ideas actually happened this year. So I feel like a lot of schools, a lot of institutions are really kind of set in their ways and resistant to changing based on what students or employees at that institution want. But Sloan is absolutely not that way, and I think that's been great.
Go ahead, Brad.
I'll do it really quickly, kind of backing off of it. Oh, sorry, Chris. I just wanted to say that the ability for a student to have impact when they come in to Sloan is pretty remarkable. So kind of on Jason's point of, he saw that board and there was a lot of feedback for SIP Week, and they actually took that feedback and integrated that into the curriculum. That's Sloan across the board, whether it's academics, whether it's extracurriculars, whether it's clubs, whether it's outside the community programs. You drive the community of Sloan and its atmosphere and its environment as a student. So if there's something you want to do and it's not here, you can absolutely create it. If there's something you want to see change, you can absolutely work towards making that happen as well. So it's a really malleable place, and it's really influenced by who you are and what you want to see around you.
Yeah, so I would just add, I think during sort of looking at other business schools and kind of making my decision, I heard Sloan talk a lot about how it's a part of MIT and how it's very much within the MIT ecosystem. And I think I kind of took for granted what that means. I didn't quite understand and appreciate it at first. I think, at a lot of business schools, they're kind of in a silo. That's their school. Their campus is far removed. We were right on MIT's campus, and that for me has meant taking entrepreneurship classes with engineering students and getting to take classes in design at the Media Lab. And I think, again, that's not Sloan experience, but because we're at MIT, sort of that added level of benefit you get of being a part of that community. And I don't think I realized quite how exciting and interesting that would be kind of the layer it would add to my experience here, and that's been really great.
And I'll just add that I heard a lot before coming to business school about how grades don't matter, and people don't go there for the academics, and it's fine. And that's true. Grades don't matter. But at the same time, like, I've been amazed and pleasantly surprised about how much I've been learning in class. This is the plug for how awesome the classes are. Like, Jason and I are in this operations class, and every day I walk, or twice a week, I guess, walk out of class being like, that was so cool. I would have never thought of that. And having that sort of academic rigor in a way that I would argue other schools don't have has been very wonderful.
Wait,
also,
so you
apparently our conference rooms are very eco-friendly, so my lights keep turning off, and so I keep getting up to turn them on. But eco-friendly conference rooms were a surprise.
what building are you in?
I'm at E51.
Oh, they have that.
Shave your arms more to like keep that.
I tried that the first time. It didn't really work.
You two are in the same class, even though one's a first year and one's a second year?
Mm-hmm.
How?
So during core, so your first semester of core, which is what all the first years are in right now, you take all your core classes with your ocean, right? Your group of like 60 or 70 people that you take all your classes with. But you always get one elective. So you could choose between finance, operations, marketing, and strategy. And those are all really cool electives, but you only get to take one that first semester. So a lot of people want to take them in future semesters. So that's how second years and first years can be integrated in the first semester. Second semester, it's just kind of a free-for-all. So you have all different years. I mean, both first and second years in your classes. You have Sloan Fellows who have amazing breadth of experience, and they're like, you never want to speak after a Sloan Fellow because you're not going to say anything as smart as them. And then you have Master of Finance and all those different programs. So you get a really good assortment of people in your classes.
Anyone want to add to that?
Also, non-Sloanies like HKS. I just ran into somebody from HKS in my class, as Chris can probably attest to it. That's also nice to have kids who are outside of students, I should say, outside of MIT.
Yeah, and I think, just to kind of take that in the other direction, I mentioned the sort of MIT broader experience. To that end, if you want to take a class at HKS or take a class at the law school or, somewhere else, like, you can do that too. You're allowed a couple credits outside of MIT even across Boston. So it's a really exciting kind of community to get to be a part of.
What's one thing you wish you could change about Sloan? I get this question asked on the road all the time. I'm currently in Santa Monica. The beach is right behind me. I was just interviewing people all day, and I had that question twice. What do people want changed? And it's always a hard thing for me to answer, just because whenever there is a problem, or students have an issue, like Jason, like we mentioned, the administration is really receptive to change. MIT and MIT Sloan in general is a very entrepreneurial place where things are constantly evolving and changing, and it's not slow to happen. So I'm always interested to hear what you guys have to say about that.
I'd move it to Santa Monica. That would be pretty nice.
Yeah.
I think we all obviously really like Sloan, if you haven't already figured that out. But I think the weather, isn't great. I think, Kendall Square, right where the campus is, could have more bars and food. That's kind of like, not that important, but I don't know, it's something, I guess.
Well, let me just say, though, I mean, Kendall Square there's like tons of restaurants and bars. I guess I'm thinking of other schools where they are too, but
Yeah.
it's not that bad. I mean, how old are you guys?
Restaurants. I wish there was 10 restaurants. I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard.
Like, go back in time to 2002 and see what Kendall Square was like then, because it was pretty sparse.
I'm not going hungry or without drink, so no one should worry.
I don't think this is specific to Sloan, so it's kind of a cop-out answer. I'm not really answering the question. But it's probably true of business school in general. Like, you don't need to know exactly what you want to do in life. Nobody does. But having some sort of sense of the kind of things you're interested in, you'd like to explore, and having a sort of things you want to get out of business school would be really important. So this goes back to the FOMO thing, right? Because there's so many things. If you don't have that, it can get overwhelming. I've definitely talked to people who are like this. It's so overwhelming. I don't know what I want to do. So let me just do consulting. So sort of from a recruiting perspective, it's just something to think about. And this isn't Sloan specific. This is probably true of any business school you go to. So as prospective students, that's just something to think about.
One real non-cop-out answer, I think, is the technology. I'm sure you guys all agree. We have like 7 different systems for things, and you'd think at Massachusetts Institute of Technology they would have that a little bit more streamlined. But you just almost never know where you need to go to like do something online, and it's not the worst problem to have, but it'd be nice to just have it all in one place.
Stellar is not stellar. That's all I gotta say.
Stellar is the system where our coursework is online, if you don't know what that is.
Perfect, perfect. So, viewers, do you have any more questions? Anything candid? You can ask anything you want. Just because I'm administration, don't worry. I'm not going to judge you. So feel free to ask any questions. And same thing with you guys, obviously. If you want to just start talking or shed some insight as to life in general, go for it. And then we'll likely wrap up a little early, especially if there's not any more questions. We don't want to belabor the point and keep you here longer than you have to be. And I've got a beautiful beach and 70-degree go for a run on. So.
Oh, lucky you.
God, it was so gray and rainy and no sun today. Thanks, Jeff. If you want to email us separately offline, like that's fine too. I'd be happy to answer emails.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I would totally recommend, we have so many admissions events on campus, and I think that's the best way to get to know the school, through the ambassadors program, things like that. I know it's not like admissions told us to say that, but it's really true that I think the best way you could learn about the school is to see the students, to see how they interact with each other, with you, with professors, and I think there's no other way to make a decision for whether a school is right for you.
I visited 10 schools, ended up applying to 3, so yes, I echo that very well.
Wow.
I did my due diligence. You look shocked, Jeff.
You're so thorough.
I was thorough.
Yeah, and so selective early on, only applied to 3.
Only applied to 3, yeah. Knew what I wanted.
Know what you want.
He's a rock star.
I think we just got a question.
Oh, I know. I'm trying to see. This platform is weird. It doesn't go in order.
Not in order. They come in like popcorn. It's very weird.
Are there any on-campus LGBT events coming up?
Yes. So, like I said, we are obviously doing, actually this is off campus, we're doing like a HBS MIT Sloan mixer later this week. We're actually in the process of doing our first ever, this is not even, no one at Sloan even knows this yet, so this is kind of top secret. But anyway, we're in the process of planning sort of a different party than we usually do, sort of as a fundraiser for the club. The current thinking is it's going to be drag bingo karaoke at a bar we'll rent out, and Sloanies will get to sort of play bingo and do all that sort of fun stuff, and there'll be drag queens. It'll be kind of funny and really unlike any other club's activities. So we floated by already like a couple of dozen allies and just straight folks at Sloan, and people are super excited about it. So I'm pretty sure it's going to happen. Don't have a date yet, but that's sort of an example of something that will be coming up soon.
Do you guys know when your C function is?
Yeah, that's in this year. I think that's in April. So we're one of the later ones this year, but we'll be hosting that in April.
Do you know if it will be on campus or at that beautiful establishment again?
The current plan is to have ours off campus again. That was really fun. People kind of like the change. So as context, most of our C functions with the weekly kind of parties or every other week, those usually are on campus, but we're trying to do a few off campus at nearby places just to kind of mix it up a bit. So we'll do that again this year. Last year was called, like, I think, Warm Up in Paradise, and it's at this sort of kind of sad old bar called Paradise, but we filled it full of like tropical colors and birds and flowers, and like made it feel like it was a really fun tropical island in the middle of a snowy February night. So it was cool.
I wouldn't call Paradise a sad old bar. It's
Well, it was nice when we were all there.
I mean, yeah, we make it fun when there's like 300 of your classmates, but I'm not sure it's my favorite place to go. Each their own.
Yeah. And also, I mean, anytime anybody who's like LGBT goes through Jeff kind of gets in contact with us, we try to show people a good time when they're here. So last year, one of the current first years came to campus and was just kind of wanted to look around, and we decided to organize a big event with the club and just kind of go out for drinks and all meet him and talk to him. So that was a lot of fun.
I didn't get this. I didn't know you could do that.
Try that. Anytime you reached out, we would have gotten the name.
Could have done it.
Got to email the club.
Yep.
I actually have a plug for another event that's happening in 2 weeks. We're having a transgender woman who was in the U.S. military come and talk to us about her experience. And also, I'm reading it as we speak from an email. Before the event, we're actually going to have an LGBTQ-focused Wikipedia editathon, where we'll start by sort of the basics of Wikipedia, and then just there's a section on Wiki about LGBT topics that are not well edited or well represented. So I think we're going to have like an hour of editathon, which is awesome, and then have this woman speak.
Great. There's another question.
Sure.
Now I scrolled away. Oh, when thinking back to when you were applying to business school, what would you have done differently? What would you worry more or less about, or what would you have done differently?
Don't worry about the GMAT.
I don't know about that.
Yeah. Okay, I took it 3 times. That was the one thing I really stressed about. It's important. But Jeff, you should probably speak more about this than I did. But I stressed a lot about it, and it turned out fine for me. And I'm probably in the bottom 5% of my class for GMAT. I'm convinced. I did not do well in the GMAT, and I'm here, so it's okay.
Anyone else?
Oh.
I would say worry a little less about like academic differences between schools, and I would have thought more about the people. And I did think a lot about the people, but you don't realize that you're just going to be spending like 2 years of your life like surrounded by these people pretty much nonstop. So you have to make sure that it's a place where you really feel like you could fit in, you can make some friends, you can get along with everybody. So that's really important.
The other two? Any words of wisdom?
Bradley did everything right. He doesn't have any regrets.
I'm not the one who should be offering advice on this process.
Chris?
I would just say, it sounds silly, but like, be yourself. Like the schools are kind of different, and like, the people you meet, like this, you kind of know if it feels right. If you kind of go in not trying to like figure out what each school wants, but sort of just like present yourself and sort of see like where you think you fit and kind of what makes sense for you. So I wouldn't try to like over-engineer everything and just sort of, kind of lead with what makes you special and unique, and I think that'll kind of help you through the process. That's my thoughts.
Great. So another question. Actually, first, so the GMAT is just one piece of the puzzle. We take everything into consideration. Just be stellar and amazing in every part. That's my advice to you all. But so the next question was, this is good.
No, Jeff, I feel like you as administrator can make the questions answer questions, and then they'll go away.
I don't know how to do that though.
That's all right.
Someone just asked something. Hold on, I'm finding it.
Out of order. That's so weird. I think it's the one about your undergrad. Is that right?
Yes, that's what it was about undergrad. Oh yeah, where did you all go to undergrad? And there's something like after that. Unless, yeah, whatever. Where did you all go to undergrad, and were you out there?
Cool.
I went to Connecticut College in Connecticut.
And were you out there? You always leave out half the question, Lakshmi.
No, Lakshmi, do you shouldn't have been admitted, Lakshmi. What the heck?
I didn't hear the rest of the question. I'm sorry. Say that again.
Were you out there?
Oh, yes, I was very out there. I helped build the first LGBT center on campus, so I was very out there.
I went to Cornell, and Bradley did too, but I was not out there, and I wasn't even really out myself there, so it's relatively new.
So I also went to Cornell, and although Jason and I didn't know each other, I think we had similar approaches, and then I was also not out, and I probably didn't really do a great job of just knowing myself either at that time. So, yeah. Something about Cornell.
I went to Indiana University in Bloomington. I was out eventually in college. But yeah.
Great. So I guess if there's no more questions, we can wrap things up. Does anyone want to leave any parting advice before we go?
I have a plug for this because I write for the student blogs, and not because I write for this, but I pretty much read every single student blog on the MIT Sloan blog website thing, and they were so fun and entertaining, and I loved it. It was like one of the reasons I applied to Sloan. I was like, I love these people, and I want to go to Sloan. So you should read. I think every school probably has some version of that kind of student blog. You should read that because it really does tell you a lot about the school.
Come visit. I think, as everyone said, meet the people, sit in on a class, see how the dynamics happen. That's the best way to figure this stuff out if you can. So.
Definitely, and good luck and have fun with the process.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, visit if you can. It's a great way to get a feel, whether it's before or after you're applying. It's the best way to sort of get a sense of what you're going to get yourself into and what all the schools have to offer. And every school you go visit, every school you're looking at is a great school, and there'll be great opportunities for you. But when you get on campus at certain places, you can see a stark difference of how students interact with each other, how faculty interact with each other. You see these amazing people, these Nobel laureates hanging out in the cafeterias, talking to students. You see alumni coming back. Sloan's a real dynamic place, and MIT in general, so much to do, like at Sloan and then at the Greater Institute too. So really, do your due diligence, go for a visit, get to know the place, ask questions, talk to students, talk to alumni. If you guys have any questions, my email is just jcarbone, C-A-R-B-O-N-E, @mit.edu. These guys, I can put you in touch with them. You guys can give your email addresses too if you'd like. But yeah.
Mine's now below my picture. I figured out how to add it into that header thing.
It's a little cut off though.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Well, it's always first name dot last name at sloan.mit.edu.
Is it really?
Yeah. It's only ambiguous when like the first name could be a nickname or something.
Huh.
Jeff, did you not know this?
I had no idea. They so much trouble looking up people's names.
You could technically change it, so it's not always right. It usually is. But I put mine up too. I'm just chris.sommerfeld at sloan.mit.edu. So.
I'm lakshmi.kannan at sloan.mit.edu.
Bradley doesn't want anyone to know his information, so he's not telling me. But yeah, so thanks so much for joining. We really appreciate it. If you have questions, reach out. Come visit campus. We look at our website. We travel around the globe as well, so we could be in your neighborhood sometime soon. But thank you so much for joining, and we look forward to hearing from you and seeing you on campus or getting your application. Thanks, guys.
Bye, guys. Thanks.
Bye.
Guys.
Take dinner next time. Sloan students. Bye.